everybody is talking about the Taycan. It's your big, fancy electric new car that everyone's excited about. I'd love to hear you talk about how does that car embody what luxury consumers want from a sustainable vehicle in the next few years?
I think we just heard it. I think luxury consumers expect, within a brand purpose, they expect sustainability to play a major part. And we're at the beginning of a transition phase in the car industry, but also for Porsche, to switch over to battery electric vehicles fully. And give you the example for Porsche, by 2025, every second car we sell at the moment in our plans says that it's going to have a plug, either for a battery electric vehicle like the Taycan or a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid. So that's a huge transition, all paying into this account of sustainability.
That's exciting. And I have to assume it will still be fun to drive, even if it's electric, because it's a Porsche.
It's, well, I'm biased, so.
Yeah. Well, I have driven it, and I have to say it's very fun to drive.
And I appreciate that. And I have to say, you said it, I've been with Porsche for over 20 years, so I've driven a couple of cars that were, straight from our research and development department. You saw the predecessor, you drove the predecessor, you saw the successor, you drive it, and you think, hey, what can they do better? And there is no car other than this Taycan that has really taken my breath as much as this car. So battery electric technology in the form that we have now embedded it into our car is truly breathtaking. And it speaks Porsche all over. It's DNA Porsche. We know all about chassis and drivetrain. So we know all about what needs to be done to take the car to the limit and beyond, to take it to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, a racetrack, and that's what we've done. And we just had our dealers, our American dealers, 191 dealers over in Europe for 4 days, getting to know the car. Many of them just came back to me and said, I get it.
Really? Mm-hmm. And is there any consideration about, all right, luxury cars, sustainability, this is an oxymoron, or are those actually really beautifully melded? And how do you blend those two?
Yeah, I think there's one sentence that we often use. If Porsche doesn't change, Porsche will not be the same. So in order
profound.
Profound. So in order to actually remain what we are, aspirational, you have to adapt. You have to adapt to new expectations from consumers. This is exactly that transition time. And there's another sentence I often use in those circumstances. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see more change than in the past 50 years in the car industry. And that holds true for us as well. So for us, of course, sustainability, battery electric vehicles, new technologies, new design language, connectivity, autonomous drive mode. Now, think about that for a Porsche driver. Yeah. Why would you do that?
Right.
That's a contradiction in itself.
Right, completely.
But it's all coming. If we don't adapt, we're going to be left out with consumer expectations going forward in the far future.
So what's scarier, adapting or being left out?
Certainly the latter.
Yeah. So it's the adaptation that's really...
You need to do it. I mean, there's probably another part in our history that is comparable to our Taycan, which is the Cayenne. I was already with Porsche in 2002 when we introduced an SUV for a thoroughly bred sports car brand. And we launched that car with basically one sentence: we will always produce the sports car in the segment. And if you also today drive a Panamera in the luxury sedan segment, or if you drive a Cayenne in the SUV segment, it's always the sports car in the segment. And we're trying to do the same with the Taycan.
I love that. Okay, so now we're going to take a break and do a poll. Let's get the first poll question up. What is your view on electric cars? The choices are, they're nice in movies, but not realistic in our lifetimes. Number 2, they're great, but small doses, like how it is now. We don't actually want them. Number 3, the sooner they come, the better. They're the only way we can go forward. And number 4, they look weird and I don't drive anyway. That's a very New Yorker response. Wow. So we'll see. Okay. It looks like we're getting a lot of they're the only way forward for the auto industry to advance. Does that surprise you, Klaus?
That is number one. It
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me. The extent, actually, 80% almost, is surprising.
Yeah.
So I guess some people in the room have driven electric cars. Hence, the psychological barrier is lower for many people who have not driven a car in terms of range anxiety and everything else. We have to bridge that. We have to help everybody understand that we have solutions for those psychological barriers.
I wanted to ask you, how much of your job is educating consumers about what sustainability looks like for a Porsche and electric driving?
I think, generally speaking, battery electric vehicles, new technology, range anxiety, like I just said, we just have to walk the talk. We have to help people understand. We have to give them opportunities to try out the cars with our dealers. And we have it a little bit easier with Porsche. We're in the premium segment, so our customers, they have 3 cars in average in the garage. So for them, it's no big deal if they have a range anxiety problem, they can easily bridge that with another car. And let's be serious, 250, 300 miles range per day, who exceeds that? And 90% of charging actually takes place at home or at work. So you charge off every morning with a completely full battery. And that's really, we can't educate customers, I don't think. We can explain, and they will then find out themselves, because then they believe.
That's a great point. And we've talked a little bit about how, going forward, the importance of brand positioning versus product. Can you talk a little more about Porsche's brand positioning in the near future, how that is shifting?
Yeah, in former times, you produced products, and those products would orchestrate or compose your brand picture. Now it's actually different. We have to define the brand purpose, and then build the products that sustain that. Now, you might say that's a bit of an academical question, but in other words, that just means that we have to be present with Porsche in areas that we have never been present in before. You've probably seen Star Wars. Now, why would Porsche, partner with Star Wars?
I've heard about this, yes.
And that's simply to be more visible and to engage other target groups, younger target groups that engage with that fantastic saga of Star Wars. And then now you have to, of course, in an authentic way, bridge that. Why does it make sense? It makes sense because if you look at design, spaceship design and car design, there are actually similarities. And we had a workshop in Weissach with a head of design from Star Wars that designed all the starships. And with our guys, and we actually built a starship for Star Wars that's, it's further down the road. Or space.
How far are we talking here?
We're talking at least a year.
Yeah, okay.
But actually we're going to show that this year in December, what they have come up with. And that starship went into the wind tunnel, where we usually test cars for their drag coefficient. And so that just shows, another example is Porsche, for the very, very first time next year, will be on the biggest stage on Earth, which is Super Bowl. Now, for a car brand that only sells 3 cars out of 1,000 here in the United States, that's a bold move.
This is huge, and this is the first year I think that Porsche will ever be involved in Super Bowl campaigns.
That's right. So
why now?
Because we want to engage new audiences. We want to be bigger. If the product is not the only factor building your brand, if you have to make the brand something bigger, give it a halo, give it a brand purpose, which is sustainability and everything you talk about, then you also have to get louder. And that's why we decided to actually, for the first time for Porsche, be on that biggest stage with a pretty cool story.
Can you give us a little hint about the story?
Well, the Taycan is obviously the main character in the story, cool. But the Taycan is being chased by some cars that you would only find in a Porsche museum. So it's a road chase. So it's something that originates in Germany, in Zuffenhausen, the cradle of the brand. Wait and see more cars.
Okay, we will look forward to that. And you bring up a great point. Porsche has quite a history and a heritage of racing, driving, iconic shapes that have been relatively unchanged for 70 years or 50, depending on how you count. Yeah. How do you balance this rich heritage with what you're describing, moving into the future, brand positioning, sustainability. What's the tightrope that you're walking?
I think you have to find the sweet spot. You're absolutely right, between tradition and innovation, because tradition, that's deep roots that keep you stable in all times, but you mustn't miss out on innovation. Now, if you take the 911, it's now in its 8th generation. 1963, it's been invented and shown on the Frankfurt Auto Show. And if you look at the generations next to each other, you can see that it's an evolutionary development. And yet, if you look at the 911, for example, here in this country, we won the triple this year on the racetrack on endurance racing with the 911 drivers, cars, and team. So the car is really competitive, despite the fact that it still looks like a 911, and it's farther from 1963.
The heritage
so you have to
is
do
all
both.
through. Yeah,
Yes.
both, and both is possible. Is what I'm hearing you're saying.
Yes,
it's doable for Porsche.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what are you looking at with some extreme attention that are going to be the challenges as you move forward? I mean, everyone's talking about tariffs, Brexit, trade woes. There are definitely uncertainties in the market. What is taking your energy and time?
Well, certainly the economy. I mean, 2009 was a big crisis. Now that's 10 years ago, and you feel the only way's up. So you start doubting your own luck or your own drive, and that's really what we have to look at. Now, you mentioned tariffs. I think we're in a much better spot than a couple of months ago. I think the administration has acknowledged that the companies that are selling cars here, importing cars from Europe, have established significant jobs, investments. Our mother company, VW, has just announced 800 million investment in Chattanooga for the new battery electric vehicle that's going to be produced there. So we're committed not just to sell cars here, but also to do our homework and to invest and to employ people and to train people. For Porsche, our Porsche partners, our dealers out there, they employ 6,000 people. They work for the car, for the brand, and they're paid jobs, and they have family, have a good living standard. So I think it's a balance, and I think it was a lot about lack of communication, and we're in a much better spot right now, from my point of view. Now, for us in the market, and the car market, new car sales in the United States last year and this year, they're plateauing. You can see that we've reached a cap. We're a bit different right now, and we really like that. We're 6.5% above previous year, which was a record year. So we're in good shape, and the Taycan is yet to come into that equation. So we're pretty excited about next year.
And you're talking about growth. Do you foresee that growth also happening in electric vehicles?
If I look at our order intake for the Taycan, I can talk about ourselves. Yes, certainly it is happening. And I would say for the overall market, now I just came over from LA, from the LA Auto Show, everything people talk about is electric over there.
Yes.
Right now. It's all electric.
Yes.
So I think it's going to gain momentum. It's going to inspire people to look into it. And I can tell you, once you drive the car, a battery electric vehicle, no matter what brand it is, it's a fantastic technological milestone for everything that is in mobility.
I think that's good. And you also, I've heard you mention a couple times pole position. We're starting from pole position. And I sense that is how Porsche and you are approaching the future, that you're arranging things in that way.
I think when I talk about pole position, I talk about customer experience, because now let's talk about luxury. The product is, of course, one side, and you have some hygienic factors that people expect you to fulfill or exceed. But then the experience when you buy the product, when you have a problem with the product, when you service the product, when you replace it, that's really, from my point of view, going forward, something that is more important than the product itself. It's going to gain importance, and especially for a premium brand like ours. So a couple of years ago, in terms of the JD Power reflection, we weren't where we belong, not on pole position. And we couldn't be more proud that with our dealer partners in the United States, we are now #1 in SSI, CSI, and Appeal. So all the 3 trophies, we are proud to have all those with #1 spots. And I'm deeply convinced that if you want to call yourself luxury, this is where you need to be. And the competition, of course, will take place with products. Now, in our case, battery electric vehicles, you're going to see that 0 to 60 top speed is irrelevant going forward. And that sounds horrible being Porsche.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
sacrilegious.
That is
Yes.
something that people will take for granted.
Yeah.
A car in its best setup, going 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds, that's nothing to write home about in 5 years from now.
Really? 5 years?
Yes.
That's relatively soon.
Because that's relatively soon.
Yeah.
And if you look at the different catalogs of different manufacturers,
Yes, of course.
for many cars above a certain price range, it's already the case. So where do you differentiate going forward? In luxury, it will be customer experience.
So tell me a little bit about what people are asking you when you talk to them at driving events or rallies or cars and coffees, that sort of thing. What do they want to know from you personally in your job? What are they worried about? What do they want?
Cars and Coffee is a good example. I just attended one in Atlanta, actually, and I attended it with my 993 Turbo.
Okay.
So air-cooled 911,
Yes.
Very, very nice
And
car.
what year?
1997.
Okay.
And so they ask me, how do you like that car? Then they find out, that I'm with Porsche. Then I ask about the Taycan. Then they ask me, don't you miss the sound?
Yes.
And of course, when you talk about a visceral experience, sound is an important part. And there will be people out there who will miss the sound. I personally do not miss it. I think it's even more impressive to have that power output actually without any sound. It just kicks all the time, all the way through. So it's going to be very personal, how people experience that car. And for me personally, I'm not worried because we have chosen a route and a setup that we are going to have combustion engines where people will be able to experience the sound. We are going to have plug-in hybrids where you can drive purely electric or in combination, and we are going to have the battery electric vehicle. And actually going forward, if you want to comply with emission standards, we will have to have battery electric vehicles to be able to afford building GT3s and GT3 RS and GT2 RS, which are the cars that you would then take to the racetrack, and they are combustion engine cars.
So it sounds like you're describing a happy family of options in the future.
It's choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to give people choice.
Yeah. Yes. So going forward, tell me about what people will want from a sustainable company. From a company standpoint, what does that look like for Porsche? What is the sort of conscience that Porsche will inhabit?
I think one of the biggest words really is credibility.
Oh, interesting.
So if you sell this car and you say there are no local emissions, people of course go back to supply chain and say, where do the batteries come from? What happens with the batteries going forward? What kind of production system do you have? What energy do you use to produce the car?
Lots of questions.
Lots of questions. Yeah. Now, you have to deal with those. And that's an expensive solution because you have to have a zero impact factory to produce those cars. You have to control your suppliers, at least until first tier, on whether they stick to your claim that this is a zero impact. It's a CO2 neutral way to produce the parts and assemble the parts. And of course, when we then jump ahead with a battery, at the end of its life cycle, now the warranty goes, it's 8 years warranty for the battery, so it'll hold, of course, longer than that, but let's talk about 10 plus years.
Sure.
Yes, we are working on a concept that is called the second life for the battery, which is either to take it apart and use rare earth and all the raw materials in there, or use them for battery buffers in homes. So you have to extend your span of control of all of that if you want to call yourself sustainable. To have answers beyond the car that is in front of you, and you just plug it in and go. And go.
Yeah. How much of a consideration is the infrastructure to these cars, and is that developing at the same speed as the production of the cars, or is it a leapfrog thing?
It's not developing as fast as you can actually sell cars and bring those cars on the road. But we're actually at a reasonable spot and speed. Now, we have partnered with Electrify America. They have, by July, they have set up 300 charging stations across the country.
And this is the Volkswagen, it will fit all Volkswagen vehicles, correct? correct?
Not just Volkswagen,
Okay.
all industry vehicles,
Great.
except Tesla. Tesla, they've got their own proprietary plug. So they
That's a
don't
whole other
want that.
conversation we could have.
We could, yes, if you want to, but the time is ticking.
Yes.
No, but Electrify America, ChargePoint, EVgo, we've got enough points now that we can see either already installed or coming. We've got metropolitan areas, 180 spots in metropolitan areas, so it's coming. And let's think back about the beginning of the automobile. At the beginning of those times, you had to get your gas from a pharmacy. So, there are, of course, steps you need to take. There is the necessity for having the electricity on the right power level to use all the potentials of those cars. But that's a question of just doing it.
Okay, let's do another poll. I think we have time. The next poll question is, what do you think about electric cars as sports cars? The options are sports cars use gas and a manual transmission. End of story. That sounds like a very purist answer. Next option, electric cars drive great, but why do they look so weird? And the third option, electric sports cars are the future of true driving. We have a very,
Oh, wow.
Yes, wow, very strong response there. Yeah, very much. I guess people are not concerned about the noise that you describe and the range. That's great. And that seems to probably fit with the future of Porsche.
Yes, and for the ones that are on the top of that graph, we just need to cater for those consumers as well.
Really?
And we are. Yeah, of course.
How is that possible? I mean, I think it's great that you are not just discounting the people who might have answered in the top two options, that they can be included too.
They can be, because, and actually when it comes to signing a contract, you might see a different distribution of answers here.
Yes, that's a very good point.
So when I talk to our consumers, our customers, many of them find it difficult to buy into that. So it'll take time. And if we don't give them the time, if we just stop offering certain options, they will not forgive us that. So a customer-centric company, of course, has to cater for these people. I mean, take manual transmissions, which is a an intense debate within the Porsche family, because it does not make sense to drive a manual anymore, because a double clutch transmission is faster, it consumes less, it's more durable. But still, for the GT3, actually 2/3 of people driving a GT3 have chosen the manual transmission.
Why?
Because they want to be engaged, and we have to respect that. And that's why Porsche is actually one of the few car producers that still offer manual transmissions, because we have to respect customers' wishes. That's why I said, we'll have solutions for all of those three categories.
That's great.
Yes.
That's a great answer. Okay, so last question. We're very excited about the Taycan. What can we expect for the future of that car line and the future of other electric cars at Porsche?
Well, the next one down the road is it's called a Cross Turismo. So it'll be a Taycan that will be a little bit elevated, a bit more rugged. Okay. So that's going to be next year already.
Off-road capable, potentially?
Yes, off-road capable. I mean, we won't drive the Barista car with it, but the typical use cases, it'll be able to manage, of course. Then down the road, the Macan, which is our more compact SUV, that's going to be changed over to battery electric vehicle completely. So we're working on that right now. And that's 2022, 2023. So that's the biggest step in terms of volume that we're changing over into electrifying our fleet, that car then.
And those are already in the pipeline.
They are.
So we can look forward.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, same here. And then after that, we'll see. Many people ask, how about the 911? That's the core of the brand.
I was going to let you bring that up, so that's great. Yeah.
I think that car deserves to be last in line.
Yeah. That's a fair response.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time. We so appreciate you being here. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.